Thank you, AC. Like AC said, I appreciate everybody coming here today. It's fired up time, man. It's been a great camp, 4 weeks. We're ready to roll, and really proud of our team, the effort that they put forth in this camp this year from a mental standpoint as well as a physical standpoint. So I know they're excited. They're anxious to go like we are. And, we got Vandy opening up. Again, it's the fourth year in a row we've played them. They got us last year. And I think the big difference in the game last year was their front seven dominated, our guys up front. And, we couldn't establish the run. We had a hard time in protection. So it's an area that we've got to improve on this year. And then defensively, we started so slow last year against them. Their first three possessions, they score, and it's 21-0, there at the end of the first quarter. So after that, we settled in and, played pretty good defense after that. So, Vandy started out really good last year, and then they struggled a little bit. They finished on a high note, beating Tennessee. They've got an experienced team coming back. They've got their quarterback. I think they've got 8 starters. Played against a lot of these guys. Kyle, I have a lot of respect for him. I think he's an excellent quarterback, just a smart, tough, player that I respect immensely. They lost Ralph Webb, the running back, but Blasingame played a bunch against us, and he's a big, 230-pound running back that is physical, runs downhill. So they've got good players. They got some transfers in that'll change their team a little bit. Defensively, a lot of respect for what Coach Mason has done over there from a defensive standpoint. Charles Wright, their defensive end, number 11, he's wreaked havoc on us the last few years. He's a good player. Their linebacker, Smith, a local kid from here in town, I've watched him play a lot of ball since he was in high school, and again, I respect him as a person and as a player. Just a really good player, and their back end is really talented. They're going to play a lot of man coverage, and we're going to have to win. The one-on-one matchups. The first game, there's always the unknowns in a first game. There's a little bit more unknown in this game because, Vanderbilt, Coach Mason's I'm sure he's still got his hand in the defense a little bit, but supposedly, he's not the defensive coordinator anymore, but I'm sure he'll have his hand in it. So you've got a new defensive coordinator. They've got a new special teams coordinator. So all those things go into a little bit of the unknown in a first game. So we've got to be ready mentally. We've got to play very smart football, both from an assignment standpoint and from a discipline standpoint. Offensively, we've got to be able to run the ball better than what we did last year against them, and we got to be able to protect better than what we did last year against them. So, again, I have a lot of respect for Coach Mason and what he's done there at Vanderbilt since he's been there, and expect this to be an exciting game. We're jacked. We're ready to roll.
In a couple of years past, you had to really focus on Ralph Webb for Vanderbilt, and now it seems like they kind of operate like running back by committee. How does it change in your game plan when you go up against a team that's changing like that?
Well, I think they leaned on Ralph the previous years because of some inexperience that they had at quarterback. Last year, I don't think Ralph's numbers were as good as what they were the previous couple years, and I don't know if he was hurt or whatnot, but their quarterback played a lot better, was a lot more consistent last year. They threw for almost 3,000 yards, I think 2,700 yards last year. So they were more balanced in the passing game last year than what they were the previous couple years. But Blasingame played against us a bunch. He was kind of their short yardage goal line guy there. Those first couple years we played him, and he's a load. He's tough to bring down. We've got to do a great job from a fundamental standpoint. The transfer they've got from Illinois, we played against him in 15 when he was at Illinois. He's a guy that can run. He's got good speed. He's from Nashville. So they've got good running backs. I know they're going to miss Ralph Webb and his production, but I think they've got guys capable of replacing him.
Hey, Coach, what did you see from Kyle Sherman last year? He kind of threw for almost 300 yards and 3 touchdowns against you guys. Compared to the year before, he was kind of more conservative.
Well, I think the year before was, again, probably just maybe the lack of experience maybe of him playing, or, they felt so good about Ralph, because Ralph rushed for, over 100 yards against us that game. But he did a great job. They did a great job of play action. They hit us in the mouth early. They came out and, put 3 drives in a row and scored points. And we were on our heels, but he can make all the throws. He's a senior now. He's seen a bunch of snaps. So he's an excellent quarterback. I'm sure he's a great leader for him. And I'm sure he's confident now going into his senior year.
You mentioned up front last year you guys were kind of dominated by them. Do you feel like you're in a better position now than you were at this point last year up front on both sides?
You hope so. You never know till you get there. We'll have 3 of the 5 starters in that game last year start for us this week. And I think all 3 of those guys are better than what they were last year. So the new guys coming in, they're going to play. They've played a little bit now since they've been here. So I've got a lot of confidence in our offensive line. Coach Mallory and Coach Polly have done a great job with them from the spring, through the summer through August and everything. So I like our offensive line. Chandler Brewer, Pete Bohannon, Carlos has played a bunch of games now. Luke Harris, Josh Fannin, started the last, 3 or 4 games of the year last year when Pete got hurt, so we're a more experienced offensive line at this time than we were at this time last year. So I like the toughness of our offensive line. I like what Chandler and Pete and Josh and Carlos and Luke and those guys are doing. And, but you never know till you get out there and play. But I feel a lot better where we are today than we were at this time a year ago.
See, Darius is currently listed as the starting middle linebacker. Is that kind of something you guys saw during camp, or was that a little bit of the inexperience with Cody Smith and Avery Jones?
Well, Darius is a very, very talented player. Darius has played inside. He's played outside. He's a smart football player. He's a tough football player. Avery hasn't practiced. I mean, he's hurt. He hadn't practiced one day. So, you had Cody. We need some depth. And, I've got a ton of confidence in Cody also. I think Cody's going to be a really good player for us. But Darius has played. Darius has played a bunch of snaps since he's been here. And that's the decision we made to go with him.
Hey, Coach, switching it over to offense, you guys have the 3-headed horse at running back and then some weapons at wide receiver. How does that help you guys get to a fast start on offense?
Well, we're a lot healthier this year at running back than we were at this time last year. If you remember, we had to bring Ty Lee in the second game. He started the second game at Syracuse as a running back. Richie James was getting snaps at running back in the Vanderbilt game last year because we just got decimated, with injuries at the running back position. Tavares Thomas really, gave us a shot in the arm last year. He didn't know what he was doing. He was running. He was playing on pure instinct. Here's a 250-pound linebacker that, you ask to be your running back, and he hasn't done that since a senior in high school. So he's had a whole off season, a whole spring, a whole summer, a whole August to get his body in running back shape, to get his vision, his feet, his footwork, and I don't want to say learn how to be a running back again, but all the little nuances that you have to be a successful running back. And so I feel really good about Tavares. He's a phenomenal, fantastic young man. He comes to work every day. He's a tough, physical, hard-nosed runner. And then you got Terrell West, who's, missed most of last year, and came back towards the end. He's had a really good camp. We got, Brad Anderson that we can sprinkle in there a little bit. So I really feel good about our running back situation right now.
Coach, I know an emphasis in the offseason was how do you guys force more turnovers on the defensive side? Starting with an experienced quarterback in Vanderbilt, how do you guys do that?
Well, sometimes turnovers, you can do everything that you've ever done as a coach, everything you've ever done as a player, and not you just don't get them. We've emphasized it more, but not that much more than we ever have because it's something we've always done. So last year was just one of those years where we didn't get many, but we had ample opportunities to get more than what we ended up getting. So our guys have done a ton of ball skill drills in the off season. I think they did a much better job this summer working out on their own, when they worked out on their own, of incorporating those drills into their, voluntary workauts. And then it's carried over to August, where we're doing it with our coaches now. So, a lot of times, the ball just doesn't bounce your way, but if it bounces our way this year, we've got to take advantage of it because, when you get less than one a game, we played 13 games and we had created 11 turnovers. That's not a good stat, and it's not indicative of how well our defense played last year.
Coach, do you like being the underdog? I mean, it seemed to work for you in big games in recent years.
See, I've been an underdog all my life. Been an underdog. Every time we play somebody here, we're the underdog. We're the underdog playing Arkansas State in the bowl game. We're an underdog at Syracuse. That's us. That's why that chip on our shoulder is big, and we got to prove it every day. And somebody's always doubting you, whether it's doubting you as an individual player, or doubting you as a coach, or doubting you as a team or a university or whatever. That's your motivation to go out and prove them wrong. Everybody doubted Kevin Byard, and look what he's done in the NFL at the highest level. And, Benny Cunningham's of the world, and Eric Walden's, and Richie, all these guys, that leave here, whether they go to the NFL or not, these guys leave out of here. We leave out of here with our head held high and know that we weren't the underdog, but that's what people think we are.
And you've had upsets throughout your career. I mean, 2 in the last couple of years. I know it's a different team last year, and this year is a different team, but I mean, that's got to give you some confidence knowing that you have the recipe and you can do it again, right?
We're not in all. These guys, our players aren't in all going into an SEC stadium or an ACC stadium, wherever we got to go play. You know, we've done it. You know, we go in their stadiums as much as we go in Conference USA stadiums anymore. So, you know, this year, we got 4 or 5 away Conference USA games. We got 3 away SEC games. So it's we're not in all. We're not going to walk in there with our tail tucked between our leg and, oh boy, you know, I don't care what conference you're from, who you are, how many games you won. Like I said yesterday, we'll get down, get dirty, and get after it and see. Let's go play ball, man.
Enjoyed this rivalry because it's going to come to an end here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good, you know, and I know this is the last game, and to me it makes sense just with the proximity of the 2 schools. You know, I think it's been good. You know, I don't know what the future talks are about continuing it, but it's a game to me that makes sense for Vanderbilt people and our people. So yeah, I've enjoyed it.
Would you like to see it continue?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I mean, to me, I mean, going all the way up to Syracuse to play, you know, and you could go across the street, you know, and play the same team, you know, or the same conference type team, makes more sense to me than going to Minnesota or going to Syracuse. Or I remember my first year here, Vanderbilt dropped us so they could go play Michigan. We played Michigan. Next year, open up, maybe we could drop Michigan and play them. I just thought of that. Yeah.
What was the first time you saw Ty Lee? What did you think of him back in high school when he was at Georgia?
You know, Ty is a very dynamic high school player. You know, obviously you guys know him. He's not very big, but just a very dynamic player. He comes from a great high school program. Their coach does a fantastic job. They coach him hard. When you get a player out of that program, you know they know how to practice at the college level. They know how to compete at the college level. Ty, and again, you don't know this until you really get to talk to him and know him, but Ty's a smart football player. You know, he's a very versatile football player. He played running back in high school. He's played running back here at the college level. He's played wide receiver. He's returned kicks. So he's a very dynamic young man.
So with it being game week, how much more of an energy is there just around the locker room, on the field? I know you've been through camp and you want to keep it high, but there's got to be a different energy level this week.
They get tired of going. See, they get tired of going against themselves. You know, the first 4 or 5 days, you know, you're in shorts and shoulder pads, and then that next week you're pads, and there's some competition going against each other. That gets your juices going. Then, you know, that third week, you know, I'm getting tired of seeing the same people. You know, the defense knows what our offense is doing, and the offense knows what the defense is doing, and you know, and now this week, you know, now your energy's amped another level. You know, it's in football, unlike any other sport, these guys practice probably 250, 75 days out of the year to play 13 times. You know, baseball gets to play 50 sometimes. Basketball gets to play 40 some. These guys only get to play 13 times a year. And that's a lot of practice for only 13 times. So this is the fun part for them. You know, it's you know, it's the competing against somebody else, competing against the best conference in college football, in the SEC, competing against a team that has beat you the last 3 years, that finished their season by beating, you know, Tennessee. You know, it's just it's a lot to get fired up. I'm excited about practicing tomorrow.